What's good, everyone? This is Dr. Nee Darko. Make sure you hit the subscribe button below so that you're always up to date on the new uploads as well as alerts on this show. The other thing that you can do to help build this community is make sure you leave a comment below. Let us know what you like, what you don't like about the show, and ultimately, let us know who's winning these arguments, because I need to know that I'm beating Renee in these debates. Run the tape. Let's jump into this Affordable Care Act and why we want to talk about it now. So, the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, basically, it is the provision that allows me and Renee, people who want to start their own business, people who are working on their own, to purchase healthcare on the market, quote unquote. So you go to a website for your state and you, in essence, buy healthcare through the website. And this healthcare will cover you, cover your spouse, cover your kids if you have any, or any other dependents. And then you pay a monthly fee for that. As independent contractors, this is the cost of doing business, and it becomes something that becomes a tax deduction, right? So it's extremely vital for us to have health insurance if we're going to be working, right? If you are employed, if you're employed right now, that part you don't have to worry about, right? That gets deducted. You know, the beginning of the year when you go to human resources, you get to choose your health insurance. And in essence, actually, you don't choose your health insurance. You choose the type of health insurance that you want. And then based off of your premium, you make decisions on that, right? What we do is we get to find any type of health insurance company that covers New Jersey, and we make decisions based off of the cost effectiveness of it and what it covers and go from there. So the interesting thing is, what we're concerned about is, you know, the current administration under Trump back in 2016, 2017, he made some decisions that we weren't cool with. Long story short, he made some decisions that in essence kind of destabilized the market. So the best way I could describe it is if we were paying like $500 a month for our health insurance, right? That's to cover me, Renee, and the kids. He made some moves that in essence told the insurance companies, we don't know if the Affordable Care Act is going to be in existence like in a year or so or in 2 years. We don't know. And as a result, those insurance companies, what they do is because they have to cover way more people, right? It kind of stabilizes the market, right? So the whole thing, the way how insurance companies work is they accept a lot of money from everybody and they spend money on the sickest people. And the more you throw in regular non-sick people, they get money from non-sick people, but they don't have to pay for non-sick people. They use that money to pay for sick people. So they get more money. It stabilizes the market. Trust me on this one, guys. I can't get into insurance 101. It's going to be really boring, right? So what he did is he destabilized the market. And now what ended up happening to us is like what was $500 a month became $700. Some people, it became $900 a month. That's a big deal. That's a really big deal, particularly if your rates as a locum tenens doc, if you're charging whatever it is per month, you know, doesn't really incorporate that. And I'm a little nervous about that. You know, I'm a little nervous that, you know, he's not the biggest fan. His administration is not the biggest fan of the Affordable Care Act and what that does. Is that going to drive premiums up? And will it make it untenable for us to stay as independent contractors?
Yeah, that's a huge problem. And to say the least, that's a huge problem.
Yesterday, how's it go? The price
today is not the price yesterday.
No, the price yesterday was not the price today. I think that's what
Either way, the price of one was not the price of the other. So the price is different either way you slice it. But the reality is, right, this certainly would affect us as locum tenens, but not just locum tenens. I mean, this affects, you know, any entrepreneur. Yeah, anybody who's an entrepreneur, right? Like, I mean, I think that it would talk about destabilizing the market, right? It really would have a huge impact on how people remain entrepreneurs, if they remain entrepreneurs. Like, you know, what does that mean, right? Because essentially, as locum tenens, we are entrepreneurs, but so are so many other people, you know? So what does that mean?
Yeah. Yeah, because now you're talking about possibly increasing the cost of working as an independent contractor.
Yeah.
Right. So now, like, if are paying, like, we don't pay our medical malpractice through, like, our medical malpractice is covered by the hospitals, right? So that's a
Mm-hmm.
big cost that we don't have to pay. But now
Right.
it's like, okay, we go from paying, 12K or, 14K a year to like maybe 20K a year.
Mm-hmm.
That could really change the mathematics of how
Oh
we
yeah.
bill to a hospital, what our rates are.
Right.
How often do we have to do locums? Do you have to take
Right.
on a part-time job as a per diem doc and stuff? Like, we see a lot
Mm-hmm.
of, for people who are listening, like, what we mean is like, there are a lot of docs right now. Let's say, for example, their partner has a regular job, which means they have regular insurance. A lot of times, the doc will just go and do locums, not worry about health insurance, and just, bring in a significant amount of money, not have to pay any premiums, knowing that their partner already has health insurance. So it's just
Mm-hmm.
something to think about. It's just something to think about. That's one thing where it's like, man, politics can really affect, like, this is how politics affects us micro. It's
Yeah.
part of me that's a
Well,
little nervous about
macro
that.
at this point,
Yeah.
right? Macro at this point. It I don't know. I think man, I think this is going to be something really that doctors need to be following very closely because, the more things like this come down the pike, the more it is going to solidify, our positions in the healthcare system, right? Where it's like, listen, if you can't afford to be an entrepreneur, then you just won't be one. You'll just have to be an employee, right? And everybody can't go out and hang their own shingle and start a private practice, right? Because that would be the only other way. Okay, that would be the only other way is to establish yourself as a practice, and even if you did that, hopefully you'd be bringing on multiple providers because even being a solo practitioner, I mean, at that point, you're still in essence almost like a locum stock, right? It's just you essentially generating all of the income for your company. So you'd have to have like a multi-doctor, multi-provider hot or a clinic or office to be able to potentially justify even getting insurance in the traditional way and then hiring, other docs as employees. Either way, somebody being employed. Either way. But I think that the other part of it is right, like you said, this is going to impact potentially how much are we going to charge hospitals,
Yeah.
right? How much
It
are we going
affects
to
that.
charge hospitals, right? Like if we charge hospitals what they deem, well, now it's just way too much, then, how many locums assignments are we talking about here that are going to be available to people? Will that
Well,
decrease the number of locums assignments? Or will doctors just cave and be like, well, I'll just go without insurance. But I mean, I can't see that either.
the other thing too is, hey, just because you're employed, like, doesn't mean you're like that affect, like, insurance is not just, it's going to affect people who have to pay their own premiums on their own the most,
Hmm.
but it also affects the hospitals or the employers who pay for health insurance also. Like, the premiums are going to go up.
Go up.
So
Yeah.
the cost that the business is going to pay to take care of premiums,
Yes.
it's going to go up for them.
Gonna go up.
And then
Yes.
that cost from for an employee,
Right.
right, to pay is going to go up also. So everybody's insurance is going to go up.
Yeah, but
But I agree with you.
the advantage that hospitals have, right? And this is why I said, if you went and hung up your own shingle, you should better hope that it's going to be a multi-provider practice, is because we know about the discount, right? Like you're not going to be paying, right? You and me paying individual in premiums isn't the same as me having 50 employees under my belt and having to pay premiums for them. Yeah, I mean it might increase, but you know the collective bargaining, if you will, right? If you have, if you have, multiple people or you're buying multiple premiums, you're likely to get a discount,
No,
that you
well,
otherwise would not get.
but that's what I'm saying. Like, I think that if you are a sole doc, if you're a sole business owner and you're buying your own health insurance, it's going to
Mhm.
hurt you more.
Yeah.
If you are
Yeah.
buying, if you're having 50 employees or more, it's going to hurt you, but it's not going to hurt you as much as that individual, right? Because there's going to be
Right.
some group discounts. But it's,
Mhm.
don't forget, like when you have employer or when you have employees, you still got to pay. You still got to pay a portion of
Mhm.
their premium, right?
Right.
So for a business that has to pay more for the people who work for them, like it still hurts, you know?
Yeah.
So that's the part where I'm like, I don't know how this is gonna work, but we'll see. I mean, because I'll be really honest with you, like whether or not you agree with like, just there's a lot of stuff that is uncertain right now. There's a lot of stuff that I'm uneasy about. I didn't vote for the dude, so I'll just be honest with you. Like, I kind of was
How many
expecting
days
this, but
has it
I'm just,
been now?
yeah, we're in February now. It's just like, sheesh, man. Like,
It
so
hasn't
that's one
even
thing.
been a month. It
Yeah, man.
hasn't been a month yet.
Yeah, yeah. But it's
I want people to
listen.
wrap their heads around that.
If you're listening right now and you thinking, okay, maybe I shouldn't go into locums, I don't do that. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying it's just something to keep in the context of
Keep in
like
mind.
if you are
Mhm.
looking to go into locums, like one of the bigger expenses that you're gonna have to pay for is your health insurance. And there's
Yeah.
a possibility that that price may change at the end of the year or sometime during this year. Um, is it enough to change it so that you'd be like, man, maybe I should have stayed employed? I don't know. I can tell you from my standpoint, I ain't staying employed for that. So it's just not worth it to me.
So I wonder what the insurance companies, think about this, right? Because I mean, I guess their thought process might be, well, if people can't get health insurance on the marketplace on their own, they're just going to go out and get a job and we'll capture them that way anyway because their employer is going to end up paying for it. It'll be at a discount, but we're not going to lose,
They'll be
that
happy.
many
I'll tell you
people.
why they'll be happy. They'll be sad and they'll be happy in a couple of ways. So if they destabilize, probably the way in which they'll destabilize is first thing that they'll probably do. That's what Trump did initially was just say, this is not mandatory.
Mm-hmm.
Once you say it's not mandatory, then you get a whole bunch of people who are like, well, I'm not paying these premiums anymore. Those premiums were going into the coffers of the insurance company, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now you've taken away a revenue source from them. So if
Mm-hmm.
they do that again and make it worse, so now we're talking about now there's less money to go around, but there's still people who you need to do payouts to.
Mm-hmm.
So the premiums are going to go up. The possibility of them saying maybe next they're not going to cover conditions. What's the name of that pre-existing conditions? That part is
Pre-existing
the scary
conditions.
part
Yes.
because that's the
That's the
next thing
scary
too. Is
part.
like, like let's say you're diabetic and you're trying to find you trying to go into
Mm-hmm.
business for yourself. Well, now because pre-existing conditions are covered, you're like, hey, like whether I work
Right.
employed or I get my own job, the insurance
Mm-hmm.
premium should be in
Right.
essence the same. But now it's like, well, if you are diabetic or if you have a mental health issue or if you had some issue with pregnancy or
Mm-hmm.
whatever it may be, they could possibly really jack your rates up, right?
Yeah.
Because you are someone who has a propensity to use this system more.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, look, you know how I feel about insurance. That stuff is a Ponzi scheme. It's a legalized Ponzi scheme, but we just got to play into it,
Tell that to
right?
patients. Tell that to patients because patients really be thinking like doctors be in cahoots with insurance companies. And I'm like, if you only knew how much insurance gets in the freaking way, like,
But
damn.
we the forward facing look, like we're the representatives of that, right? Like even though we don't work with insurance companies, like we are it's like when you get mad at a customer service rep and they're just saying, well, sir or ma'am, I'm just letting you know what the policies are. And then you
What the
take it on the
policy is.
you take it
Yeah.
on the customer service person. And he's like, look, man, I'm just listening. I'm just saying what they told me to say. I'm just reading off this paper.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I'm like,
So,
patients really be like, oh, they trying to get more money for the hospital. I'm like, what do I care if the hospital makes more money? Like, it doesn't have anything to do with me.
but,
It has
but the public doesn't think, the public doesn't know that. They
oh
don't know that.
God.
They think that you are directly, if the hospital profits, then you profit, which
Yeah.
is kind of true, right? If the hospital is
Listen,
doing well healthy wise, then you still have a job.
you still have a job. You still have a job.
But if you get paid with RVUs, there is some incentive there too. I don't get paid through RVUs. You don't get paid through RVUs. We don't do that
Locums
as
don't get paid.
locums
Yeah,
and
locums don't
stuff.
get paid with RV. I've never been paid with RVUs, even when I was employed, because honestly, I always said that RVUs, like if
Yeah,
even if
explain
I
that.
were employed, even if I were employed, I would never want to work at a hospital that would pay me on RVUs because I don't think that patient health should be incentivized. I don't. I think it's wrong. I think it's wrong. And I know a lot of people who listen to the podcast, you get paid on RVUs. This is no slight on you, but personally, I just don't think that someone's health should be tied to my salary so closely that depending on what I do or what I don't do with this patient, that I should or should not get paid a certain amount.
Let me ask you a question.
Like
So, okay,
yeah.
what do you do about things that are like, in essence, cosmetic? I'm very interested. What are your thoughts on like cosmetic
What do you
type
mean?
things? Like, for example, someone wants to get a breast reduction. Someone wants to get like, I don't know, wants to get like cosmetic, non-emergent, life threatening type of
Oh,
things
you're
done.
talking about
How
like
should
fee
someone
for
get paid for that?
service. You're talking about fee for service.
Correct. What are your thoughts on it?
So no, actually, so RVUs I feel are very different. It's very different from fee for service, right? I think that's actually very different. When you're doing fee for service, right? Well, let's go back to RVUs. When you're doing RVUs, first of all, the patient isn't even aware of how much things cost. They don't even know how much things cost. Half the time, the doctor doesn't know how much all of these things cost.
Okay.
Okay, so nobody knows what anything costs. The insurance company is the hospital bills the insurance company some arbitrary number. I'll call it arbitrary because I don't know what it is. And then the insurance company decides arbitrarily how much they're going to cover and how much they're not going to cover. The patient doesn't actually find out until way afterwards how much something is going to cost, right? For me, it's like, how do I ever walk into a store and be like, I want this, 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 this. And they're like, and I don't know how much anything costs. I have no way of knowing how much it's going to cost until I get to the cash register and they're like, oh, this costs $17,000. And you're like, what? I don't have
Yeah, there's a video.
$17,000.
There's a couple of videos of people. I think Vice did one. I forget who else did one, but there was a video where this dude, he's a journalist, wife was about to give birth, or wife was pregnant, and he
Mhm.
started calling different hospitals and asking them, okay, my wife is this amount of weeks. She's going to deliver here. How much do you think it will cost? What's gonna be the bill?
Mhm.
And nobody can give him a straight answer. No,
No.
as a matter of fact, most of the places that called him thought he was like, they thought he was bullshitting, or they thought he was like some type of spam artist,
Mhm.
because they don't have like, yo, folks, if you think I'm crazy, like when you go to like when we do mission trips, specifically in Ghana, like when you go there, they have a list. If you want a hernia surgery, it's going to cost this amount, right? Because they
Yep.
have they have tables, right? It's like it's going to cost this for the mesh, it's going to cost this for the hospital admission, it's going to cost this for antibiotics, all these different things. So you know exactly how much you have to pay before you get that surgery. It's not like that in the United States at all.
No,
It's crazy.
not at all. So in Ghana, what you just described, for me, that's fee for service. So if I walk into a cosmetic surgeon's practice who doesn't take insurance, right, which a lot of them don't, right? If I want a BBL, okay, if I decide I want a BBL, I know how much it's going to cost me, right? I
Are you
gotta
subliminally telling us, because you did get one, right? So
get out of me, please. Okay, you know what? You got a wife with a BBL now.
okay,
The one now.
we got it in Ghana, so we got a good rate. Okay, good.
We did not get no BBL in Ghana, okay? First
You.
of all, I'm gonna give you a BBL. But yeah, I think fee for service is different, right? It's different because the patient knows and the patient is informed, as to what is going to be paid for, what is not going to be paid, how much it's going to cost, those kinds of things. I think that's me. Did Renee get a BBL? Do you really put that on the screen? Me? Anyway. No, she did not. Okay. Um, so I think that's very different. I think
Okay, so but what about for
I
like
think that
what
there's
about
a
for things that are
meeting of the
not cosmetic?
minds.
What about things that are not cosmetic?
If it's fee for service, I'm okay with that, right? Because
Okay.
everything costs, right? Everything costs. Like we can't. So don't get me wrong. I don't think that doctors should be doing things for free. there's nothing in this world that you can do for free. If your doctors were doing things for free, they would actually, being a doctor would be a second or third job, right? You actually would not have time to be a doctor because you'd have to find another way to put food on your table, to put a roof over your head. So I don't think that doctors should be working for free, but I do think that there needs to be, whether it's fee for service or whether it's per hour or whether it's something, there needs to be a meeting of the minds as to how much things are going to cost you, right? And if there's not a meeting of the minds, then do you even have a contract? Do you really have a contract? If there's not a meeting of the minds as to how much something was going to cost, right? I'm going to tell you, the other day I was watching Judge Judy.
I'm done. You're gone. Goodbye.
Y'all know I like me some Judge Judy. Da, 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 da. Right? I love Judge Judy. So, I love that show. I don't know about her, but I love that show. And it just so happened that on the show, there was a case about a birthing center. And a patient of the birthing center was suing the midwife who owned the birthing center because the midwife was not present at the birthing center at the time that the patient was in labor. The midwife ended up having to go because she was doing home births also. She ended up being at someone else's home. That person ended up going to the hospital. It was a tragic outcome for that other patient. So the midwife ended up staying at the hospital with the other patient when technically the contract that she had with this patient who was suing her said that if she is busy during the delivery, or if she is busy doing the delivery of another patient, then she would not be present and she would have somebody else present. The problem was that that patient that she was doing the home birth with was at the hospital. So once she's at the hospital, she's no longer in care of that midwife, and the midwife should have been present for the patient who was suing her, right?
Gotcha.
So then Judge Judy asked, no, I lay this out for a reason. Judge Judy asked, how much is it to labor and give birth at the birthing center? And let me tell you, when she asked that question, I was like, she ain't gonna know the answer to that question. That woman said $5,000.
Okay.
She gave an answer right away, and she knew it, and the patient knew it. Actually, I think it was a patient who answered the question, was $5,000. And I was like, how'd she know that? Well, she knows that because there's a meeting of the minds. There's an actual contract. That's why I laid that out, right? The contract stipulates, I will pay you $5,000 if these criteria are met, if you are present, if you are not taking care of another patient, you should be present to labor me. And that was not, that meeting of the minds essentially was memorialized on a piece of paper in a contract, and the contract was breached.
Gotcha. Okay.
So, that's why I think fee for service works, because now the patient had a leg to stand on. Actually, the patient won that suit.